Hello and welcome to another episode of After Class. Today I'm going to be reviewing my favorite ballet books of 2025. I am an avid reader. I actually started a book club over on Instagram called the Bunhead Book Club. So if you also love to read, feel free to send me a message and I would love to have you join us. And this year, about every month or so, every 6 weeks, we read a new ballet themed book. So this ranged in topics from biographies to fiction to memoirs. So this list is not in any particular order. This is just all of my favorite books from this year that I think anyone who is interested in ballet would enjoy reading. So let's start with two works of fiction by fellow adult dancer Joanna Marsh, Cantique and La Folia. So these books are set in the Midwest and follow the journey of an adult dancer named Colette and her experiences of taking classes, navigating friendship, falling in love, and eventually in the second book, performing for the first time. I really enjoyed these. It was really fun to read books that were about the adult ballet experience. And because the author, Joanna Marsh, is an adult dancer herself, it really is the type of books that only someone who intimately understands that world could write about. And I so appreciated her attention to details and her description of different emotions that I think are very unique to adult dancers. I also really enjoyed how throughout these books, she starts a line of ballet skirts and then she also joins the costume department for her local ballet company. And so you get these really fun glimpses into other aspects of the dance world and other passions that I think are really common to adult dancers. I know I'm someone who loves dancewear and costumes, and so having that aspect infused into the story made it really fun to read. So if you're looking for a fun, light read and a story that is going to feel relatable and warm and cozy to you, I highly recommend these two books, Cantique and La Folia. And I will link all these books in the show notes, so if you're interested in reading them, you can find all the information there. The next book I want to talk about is Swans of Harlem, and the subtitle is 5 Black Ballerinas, 50 Years of Sisterhood, and Their Reclamation of a Groundbreaking History. So this book really centers on the dance theater of Harlem and the dancers who were the founding members of that company, and their story of connecting with each other and what dance meant to them throughout their lives was so beautiful. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and overall, it was just extremely insightful. I learned a lot in this book specifically about Arthur Mitchell and his leadership of Dance Theater of Harlem and his relationship with Balanchine and New York City Ballet and just his unique contributions and the struggles that he faced in starting an all-Black company. So I definitely recommend adding this book to your reading list for 2026. So the next book I want to talk about is Inside Ballet Technique by Valerie Grieg. I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. And the subtitle is Separating Anatomical Fact from Fiction in the Ballet Class. So in the interest of full disclosure, I have not actually finished this book. I'm only about halfway through, but it was recommended to me by a teacher that I really respect and trust, Amy Novinsky. And even just what I've read so far, it has been absolutely incredible. And I think as adults, a lot of times we want to have a deeper understanding of what's really going on in our bodies while we're dancing. But oftentimes the ballet classroom is just not the setting that you're going to get that. And that's because of time limitations. And also a lot of teachers just don't have that level of anatomical training. So this book has been such an invaluable supplement to me to my in-class training and just having a better ability to understand what I need to be feeling, accessing, using in the classroom as I'm doing certain steps. This book is a bit more scientific in its language and its structure. There's a lot of charts and diagrams, but I still have found that it's been very accessible and very interesting. I did not major in anything scientific or medical whatsoever, and I've had no problems understanding the information in this book. And I actually think they did a great job of writing it in a way that is understandable even to the average person. And it's really, really just helped me to have an accurate picture of what's going on in my body when I'm doing certain moves, things like even just doing a cambray and what parts of your back are actually being activated and how to properly think about engaging certain areas of your body. So this is a great resource. I highly recommend this one. So the next book that I really enjoyed and want to recommend is Behind the Red Velvet Curtain. And this one is by Joy Womack as told to Elizabeth Shockman. And we read this again in book club, and it definitely sparked a lot of really interesting conversation. Joy Womack is known as being one of the first American ballerinas to train at the Bolshoi Ballet Academy. And then in 2012, she was the first American to sign a contract with the Bolshoi Ballet Theater. So her story is very unique and very interesting because she danced in Russia, which is a country that is traditionally pretty closed off to outsiders, especially in the ballet world. So this book was a fascinating look at what it was really like to train in Russia as an American and all of the obstacles that she overcame, the language barrier, learning to navigate the culture. And if you're someone who is fascinated by the Russian influence in ballet and Vaganova, Bolshoi, Mariinsky, all the things, this is a really interesting look. I think it's very aptly titled Behind the Red Velvet Curtain because it does feel like the curtain is being pulled back on this very mysterious part of the ballet world. So I definitely recommend this one. It was really interesting to know more about Joy's background. I follow her on Instagram and think she's a beautiful dancer. And so just learning more details about her training and all of the obstacles that she overcame to become this beautiful dancer that she is. So this is a great read if you're looking for something in the genre of biography, autobiography that will shed some light on a really interesting part of the ballet world. The next book is Holding On to the Air by Suzanne Farrell and co-written with Tony Bentley. And this is a very well-known book because Suzanne Farrell is such an icon of American ballet. So if you don't know who Suzanne Farrell is, she danced with the New York City Ballet and was one of George Balanchine's muses. And they had a very famous and interesting relationship. I will let you read the book to find out more. But I just so enjoyed getting this glimpse into the history of ballet in America told through the lens of Suzanne's story. And I really learned a lot about the dynamics of the company, George Balanchine, his creative process, how he worked with his dancers, and then about Suzanne as a person who was an incredible dancer and had a very interesting life. This was also an interesting read in contrast to Gelsey Kirkland's biography, Dancing on My Grave. So if you've read that one, Gelsey Kirkland's experience of dancing with New York City Ballet and for George Balanchine versus Suzanne Farrell's are very different. I will say that Suzanne's experience is less fraught with things like drug use, eating disorders, etc. So while she did have her own challenges, I will say that Suzanne's biography is a little more PG. But I really, really enjoyed this, and I thought it was beautifully written. There's also photos in this one, so you get to see just pictures of this iconic ballerina. And I think, you know, as adult dancers, we're entering into this tradition that has a long history before us, and especially if you are an American or dancer in the US, I think it's really special to learn about the dancers that shaped our ballet history here. Also, too, if you do read this, there is a lot of really beautiful footage on YouTube, so you can look up the pieces that are being discussed in this book. So as they're talking about rehearsing and choreographing certain ballets, you can actually look up on YouTube, and there's quite a lot of footage that I was able to find for my book club girls that correlated to sections in this book. So I highly recommend it, and I think it's a great read. And the last book on the list is Raising the Bar by Lauren Kessler. And this is one that I'm actually currently reading with my book club. And the subtitle is Big Dreams, False Starts, and My Midlife Quest to Dance the Nutcracker. So this is a great book to read around Christmas time because it does center on the Nutcracker. And in this book, the author, who is a journalist, details her personal experience of dancing the Nutcracker with her local ballet company. So as someone who has loved the Nutcracker her whole life, she decides that she wants to try to dance in the production. And so she approaches the local company's director and asks if that would be possible. And the book chronicles her journey from starting to train to rehearsing with the company and eventually getting to perform in the Nutcracker. So I really think of this book as a love letter to that ballet in particular. And it's a really fun read that I find very relatable as an adult dancer. The author uses a lot of humor and she's very honest about the struggle of being an adult and entering into the classroom and how intimidating that can be, and then having to take company class alongside professional dancers and the struggle of going to a dance store and trying to find a leotard that fits. There's just so many fun and humorous moments in this book that, again, I just find very relatable, and I think any adult ballet dancer would love this book and feel very understood and seen in reading it. I have not yet finished it. Our club is still working through it, but even just based on the first half, I would recommend it. I think it's a great read for this time of year to get you in the holiday spirit. So that's it. Those are some of my favorite ballet books of 2025. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I do have a book club over on Instagram. It's conducted primarily over group chat, and then at the end of every session, we do a Zoom meetup. So if you're interested in joining, feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me an email. I'll have all of that information to contact me in the show notes, and we would love to have you join the book club. I find that reading ballet books is a really enjoyable supplement to my time in the studio and my ballet training, and it's a great way to learn about other famous dancers and to feel inspired in your own journey. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you next week after class. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can join the After Class Corps de Ballet for just $3 a month through the listener support feature. It really helps keep the podcast going, and as a member, you'll even get a special shout out in future episodes. All the links mentioned in this episode, including the link to join the Corps, are included in the show notes. See you next week after class.